Hello, welcome to our new season of Loaded Balls. We'll finish the lockdown series. Hopefully we'll keep it up with the interviews now, but I'm delighted to be joined by three, I suppose, experts. I'll call you for the night, man, to get you on side. But Cormac Venney, Mulholland, Ciaran Brannigan, lads, how you all doing?
Well, good, John. Thank you.
Good, John. Thanks for having us.
It's good, John.
You've all been doing your homework, and now we're going to dissect each championship draw. I suppose the league this year is going to be, friendlies, really, like glorified friendlies, because there's no promotion, relegation. Do you think it was the first way to do it, Shane, or how would you have liked the league process to be?
Yeah, look, I think at one stage in the year we were thinking we weren't going to see any football at all. So for me, when John Horn did that interview in the Sunday game, and everybody's thinking this isn't going to happen. This man has locked the whole show down, and maybe rightly so, because I thought the GA played a blinder in reacting really quickly. If you think of the hub that each Gaelic club is, and the hive of activity that it is, night in, night out, and week in, week out. And all of a sudden it was locked down. I think it had massively reduced the numbers in Ireland, maybe even deaths in Ireland. So I thought they played a blinder. But that was a stark message that night on the Sunday game when he said, until we see a change, we're not going to make the first move. So when the programme came out, I was delighted. It's just great to see people playing football. I think everybody took it for granted. I think everybody's really happy to be back training. Obviously, Ciaran's involved in Bransford, and maybe he's a different view in terms of preparing a team and getting it ready. But as a let's say a neutral, I'm just delighted we're back playing and we're looking forward to games. And yes, the league games might be glorified friendlies, but they'll get serious quickly, John, because people, I know from talking to some of the Ballyhone lads, they're kind of thinking, this is an open championship. You don't have that long lead in. You could catch someone on the hop. You just never know. So I think it's great to see it, and I think it's the best they could probably do in my book.
I thought I was going to get an exclusive hollow with you wearing the Dublin top that you've been brought in as a forwards coach or something. They got there, but
I get flagging over this top. I just like that particular colour.
So, Ciaran, from your experience coming in as a coach, then. How did you find it, the announcement, getting boys back to training and gearing up for championship now then?
Just tapping off what Shane said there, like, everybody's going to see this as the chance. Everybody's going to see that if you could form in this and it's over a short period, any team can fire string of 4, 5, 6 games together, and if you do that, you're either going to find yourself in the final of a championship or else you're going to find yourself as county champion. So I think everybody's going to find that year. And I would say everybody in that, and definitely the senior championship, will fancy it. There's nobody going to go into that and say, well, if we can go, we'll have a go at it. But I would say everybody's come in with the same drive this year that it could happen. As you can say, the glorified friendlies, so these wee games coming up over the next few weeks. But I know for ourselves, we have to try and get a lot of things right for obviously playing the championship. So I'm sure every other team's going to be the same thing. So you're not going to go in and, I know, speaking as a player, you can't go in and say, well, it's a friendly game here, because you're maybe in and you're playing it. He would tell you you're playing at 11. You treat that as a friendly. You're playing at 23, 24 and the following week, and then next week your year's over. Mm-hmm. So it'll be friendlies for glorified friendlies. You call it that, but I don't think it'll be that. If you go to any of the games, you'll see a bit of a bite at it, like.
And Cormac, you're recently retired, I believe. With the shorter season, did you not find yourself going, maybe I've only got a couple of weeks here to go, I'll give it another year? You're with Breeding Ladies now.
Yeah, I'm involved with Breeding Ladies. So I'm living in Belfast, John, and I suppose it was the last 5 years I've been travelling back and forward. Just been tough physically and even mentally. Starting my own business as well, so it was, you were talking maybe getting home at 5 o'clock, straight down the road. dinner at my mum and dad's, and then back to Belfast. You never lose sight of that. But so you were doing that maybe 3 days a week. It was getting tough. And I'd done a couple of sessions, sports psychology wise, with Breda Miners over a couple of years. There's a guy from Ballymartin, Jerry Rogers, involved with them. Real, I suppose, shrewd, wily man, and Damien Cunningham from Cross Glen, who was involved with Joe Kernan's regime. So them two were taking Breda minor ladies for the last 4 seasons. They won 3 Ulster titles. I happened to do a bit of sports psychology work, and Jerry had talked me into nearly retiring, but I was always going to retire. But just the opportunity to get in somewhere new and to learn off boys like that that've been around, it just really appealed to me.
That's brilliant. And so if they don't get success this year, you're the reason why then? Is that what you're saying? But I brought you on because obviously, the man played for years for Dundrum, and you know the game inside out. You also know the psychology involved in winning championship, getting the championship finals. The junior championship, from the start, how did you feel the draw? Has it favoured the bigger teams?
Yeah, you would look at that, John, in theory, and probably Shane and Ciaran will do this as well. Where you're having to go back maybe 8-9 months to try and predict form, which is going to make it more of a challenge, because ultimately, generally, if you're doing these things, you're going to be talking in recent form. So we're having to backtrack to last September, which makes it more of a challenge. But and taking that as your starting point, yes, you would say that looking at the fixtures, there are St Paul's against Mitchells, Glasdrummodd against St Michael's, Drummond against Ackadurg. You would be favouring St Paul's, Glasdrummodd and Drummond to come out on top of them, just based on, I suppose, on form from last year. The other 2 games are pretty interesting. Firstly, obviously, my own club, Dundrum, against East Belfast. I suppose you're talking about the unknown there in terms of East Belfast. It's really, really difficult to sort of predict what's going to come out of there. I suppose all I do know is the fact that it's been driven by David McGreevy, Bonzo, who is a Connacht man, but he played county level over for London. Really a quality player. Richard Maguire, who was actually a down minor in 2001, is another name I see to be driving at a Cardiff man, and then Shay Kern seems to be taking them. So it's an interesting. I'm not going to say experiment, but it's an interesting coming together, really. And I think it's obviously it's great for GA and Down. The more people we can get playing our games, the better. Yeah,
Ciaran and Shane, just from management and coaching point of view, as Cormac said there, it's an unknown. So how did Dundrum actually prepare for this game? Do they know the players that's even signed up for East Belfast?
Well, Shay, I believe Shay played for Dundrum for a year, would that be right? Or 2 years?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so Shay, for East Belfast being a new club, they're actually going to know more about Dundrum than Dundrum are going to know about them. So Shay will know everything up this side of the woods, and it's a strange one. It's going to be a strange one for Dundrum, because they're not going to know at least half the squad, maybe over half the squad. You know what I mean? Some friends might know friends that are playing, but I'm fishing in the dark with it. I don't know anybody's playing for it apart from Shay.
And John, from his perspective, it'll just be from Dundrum's perspective, it'll just be, we'll play our game and we'll look after our business, and that'll be enough to take care of what's coming through the other changing room door. What other way do you approach it? You just have to say, are you really going to get much homework done? Yeah, anybody that's doing anything at any level will have somebody at a game or two just to get a steer on a game plan or a standout figure on the pitch or some little tactical nuance that they've got going. But other than that, you're just saying we'll concentrate on our game, and if we get it right, we'll have enough to get by. I think that would be my approach to it, given that it's so unknown and so uncertain on the other side of the fence.
And Cormac, you're a big fan of Ryan McShane as well. You were saying last year that you're very impressed with him. So, I'm sure Dundrum have their set sight on a good run in the championship.
Yeah, Dundrum will not be far away. In my view, they were very, very close last year. There was a kick of the ball in it between them and August Finn in the semi-final, and we were poor that night. And Dundrum, like they've a depth of wealth there of experience of boys that have been there and done it. You know, you've 4 lads that are playing that still who have 3 championship medals. John Hurley, Aaron Doyle, and Ciaran Walsh. And I must give a shout out to Marty Coughlin. Marty Coughlin has played in the 80s. At senior football, he's played in the 80s, the 90s, the noughties, the 10s, and now the 20s. And if you can find anyone across Ireland who's done that, but an absolute legend of the game. I wanted to make that point there. And so, yeah, you have a lot of experience there. You've Paddy Curry and Eamon King would be 2 other leaders. And there's quite a few boys there as well, John, that have won an All-Ireland Sevens, which wasn't easily done. So Dundrum will be, I suppose they'll be knocking about coming business end, I would say.
And August to Finn and Ardglass then. I believe that Mick McGee could be on his way back to Ardglass as well.
Right, I wasn't aware of that. That's that'll be a good shot in the arm for Ardglass.
Mm-hmm.
Massive shot in the arm. That's the standout round, tie of the round, John. Probably looking at last year, you would favour the Finn just based upon, again, they're the only Division 3 team in the competition. They've a strong midfield pairing around the middle of Dominic Steele and Brandon McComiskey, and then they've got two really, really, really special forwards at that level, Shay Crosby and Adam Garland, who link up exceptionally well. I'm sure the Finn will be disappointed as well, coming so close last year. They'll be maybe out to rectify that. But Ardglass, 2017 had a really good season. I think that they cleaned up all around them. And then 18 they got relegated, and last year they didn't really break any delf. So it's a tough one to call. Ardglass have some really, really good footballers. Stephen Rooney's an absolute class actor in the middle of the field. Malachy Krangle around full back line would have given me nightmares every time I marked him. And John Polly sort of destroyed us in Ardglass last year. He must have knocked over 2-4-2-5 from play. So they've ballers as well.
Mm-hmm.
But just on, I suppose, on recent form, I would be tipping the Finn for that. But you've sort of you've changed the dynamics there a bit with Mick McGee coming back.
I haven't confirmed it with Mick himself, but I've been from a reliable source. I've been told he could be sitting here watching us going, "Oh Jesus, what is it?"
Yeah,
exclusive.
Never just getting away with a good rumour anyway.
You need a wee strap line going along the bottom here,
But it is an interesting championship, with the Bright sort of came out of nowhere, really. Like, it was August the Finn's championship and Jamara, really, that were the favourites last year. So, like...
Well, Sean, if we're far back to the podcast last year, I did tip Bright.
You did. You did. I'll give you that one. But what do you think, Diane? Is it going to be on single venues or is it going to be all spread across the county then, do you think, man?
As far as I'm aware, I think the first round, might be wrong here, I think it's actually in junior anyway, it's home and away, and then there's a back door. Could be wrong on that. Sorry, a home venue for the team that was drawn out first. Could be wrong on that.
What do you think, Shane? Is it going to be like double headers or single venues?
I can't see it because unless they just focus everything on 1 or 2 locations that have the facilities to cope with, like 4 changing rooms and the turnover time that's required to get 2 teams out and another 2 in the door. I mean, I just can't see them taking that risk. So you could find it could be single venues in one match. I know that limits their attendance, but you might have the novelty where they'll bring it. Maybe we'd love to see sometimes them bringing it to places outside of Newry. Pick some fields and reward some clubs that have done a fantastic job with their facilities and bring it to a one-off neutral venue. And it is what it is. It's 2 communities coming to one field, But this is the dynamic that we're not sure about because they're obviously taking their time over this plan. How many people are going to be allowed in? How are they going to stand? Are they going to be distanced? How is that all going to work? So I think it'll be one match per location because I just don't think they'll be able to do the turnaround unless you move everything through Newry.
And that could really be a level playing field as well, with maybe St. Paul's going somewhere that they're not used to going. next darkness to Finn as well. East Belfast. Does that really come into Cormac as well? The unknown, not knowing like what's happening, or is it just championship football?
It's hard on the call, John. I think. Well, I suppose obviously, I think it's all in the day. I think championship football is all in it. I think that's the beauty of championship football, and that's why I'm actually a big fan of just straight knockout. I would love to go back to them days, but that's for me. It's all in the day, particularly when you get rid of the safety net. It's just nothing better than seeing two teams go out and hammer and tongs with no safety net.
Yeah.
What is Caliph? Are Caliph anywhere at all? Have they gone away, or are there any signs of a?
Yeah, they've had a tough few years there, Shane. That obviously they had a great team there that came through, maybe from the noughties, right? Championship, I think around 2011. But I suppose they were an aging team then, Shane, and I think that sort of was their detriment. But you see, there's a lot of youth coming through now from Caliph. I think that's another couple of years away.
Why I ask? Because I have a bit of a soft spot for Caliph, because we played. Caliph was that horrendous match that somehow we got on a Tuesday night. People are coming. It's just for some reason it wasn't a local derby on a Tuesday night. They sent us away to Caliph, and it was always a really tough place to go. And they had a really good team around that time. We beat them in a championship final, in an intermediate championship final. But for about 3 or 4 years we were in around the same division, and we found it really hard to play against Caliph. So I always subsequently looked out for the results.
And they wouldn't have been the easiest to play against. They would have been fairly physical.
Yeah, no, they would. No, you knew you were in a game when you were going down there. It didn't help you need a 10-minute warm up, because people were waiting to see who was coming. The guards were coming in, But I thought there were signs of life in Caliph again, but maybe not.
I don't know. They will be back now. We beat them in the championship last year. We played them, I think, in the quarterfinals. There's maybe 7-8 points in it, but
thank you, Cormac. We're probably looking at sons of players.
That's what,
See the generational thing.
Callum Shields, Aidan McCann, Shay Savage would be sort of the boys that would stand out for themselves. But yeah, they've got a bye in the first round, so you're not going to see their hand till later on.
Cormac, I'm going to push you on. Who do you think is going to have a good championship? Who's going to surprise you, and who is going to fail? Maybe not fail, but I'm going to say St. Paul's to have a good championship, because they championed me in the podcast last year, so they did. So I've got a soft spot for St. Paul's, but Strathroman as well.
John, it's a competitive championship.
Yeah.
It's great to see. I know I won 2 of them junior championships in the past few 2012 and 17, and over the course of them 10 games, I think there was only one. It was very lopsided. There was one team, I think it was Caliph actually, a few years ago, got within a kick of the ball within us, and it's nearly an anticlimax winning them. Maybe that's a bit harsh, but what it does do is it doesn't prepare you then for the cut and thrust of Ulster club, and you will see at junior level down teams generally struggle. Word for it, because there's no down team that's won a junior championship. When you look at the teams that do win, it's generally Tyrone, Donegal or Monaghan, and when you actually look down at their over the years at their championships, they're always competitive games. So it's great to see that there is. I feel it's going to be it was a competitive championship last year. Like, it's the first time in memory I can have where there was the 2 semi-finals and a final. There was less of a kick of the ball in the teams, and I think I mentioned Dundrum and August and Finn there, who'll be with them in a shout. I think there's 3 other teams that can realistically win that championship. You mentioned St. Paul's. St. Paul's my dark horses, John. There's a guy, Paddy Hannigan, taking them. He took them last year, and he's got them really, really well organised. And St. Paul's in first year in memory actually beat us last year, and they're a lot more, I suppose, tougher and resilient than they would have been in the past. And what they have, John, is there was a St. Pat's and Knock McLaren team that are in, obviously the final wasn't played, but they got to the final, and of that squad, 9 of that team is from St. Paul's.
Right.
You add that into a team that was operating at a good senior level last year. You have Daniel Eastwood is a terrific player. Sean Tucker racks up a lot of scores. The young lad Dar Rooney he actually didn't play in the semi-final against Bright last year. An outstanding player, and they've actually Josh Gray, who was playing at number 6 for the Down Miners last year. So St Paul's have never won a championship in the history, but I think it's not going to be a case of if, but when. Mightn't be this year, maybe the year after, but definitely within the next 3 years, I feel there'll be a championship within St Paul's.
Mm-hmm. Ciaran, just how important is it for Glastroman that the Conor Harrison, is playing championship football, and how much can he be stopped at this level also?
Well, he can be stopped, and on his day he can't. But if there's a lot of bodies in around him, he's going to need players in helping him as well do the job. You know what I mean? But it's just to see great to see Glastroman going again, because there was talks last year that they weren't going to be in it. I spoke to Conor. I was on the phone to Conor the day for a good while, and he's buzzing. He's home. He's home for the duration. His work's at home now, so it's a huge boost to him. You know what I mean? And it's a huge boost even for Down to have him here and doing all the travelling as well from that gets back up and going. But Glastroman, they have the potential there to definitely cause the upset on the day if the ball travels to him early and he's on song. He is definitely hard to stop. But there will be teams there will have a wee bit more where get a lot of bodies around him, and then that can be stopped. You know what I mean? But it'll be a nice one. But I just Drummond S, I know there's a thing going on there, but there's no soccer. These boys are going to be all there, and that's one club that's going to, and I've seen it in the second last game for us last year down at Clone was against Drummond S, and we were going down there. We needed any result secured the league, and we were down there and we're standing there waiting, and then a couple of carloads come in, and then they'll come back from soccer, and I have soccer background myself, I know what it's like, but that was there, but it's their main thing out there. There's maybe 10 of them that are just driven into the soccer, and if they don't, the soccer's still no start date, so the Gaelic's going to get priority this year, so they'll not be far away. I think they can cause a problem there too.
No, definitely, it's one that it is going to be stay away from betting on it, because you just don't know. This round is going to tell a lot, where other teams are.
MLS won an intermediate championship semi-final 2-3 seasons ago. They had a disappointing season last year, but the year before that, their poor start. But then they bounced in Division 3. They won 8 out of 9 games. And the Sean McCann taken them, who was part of the Antrim senior backroom team a few seasons ago. So that's a statement of intent there as well. So I would probably be, if I was betting, I would be saying, Drummond S would be my favourites to win it.
Good stuff. All right, Conor, thanks very much for that. We'll move on to intermediate, man. Shane, you've won it as a manager. Luckily, some say, but we'll move on for that. And Ciaran, you've got obviously taken on a Clone last year. The team's inside out. How do you feel the intermediate championship is going to go this year?
Again, it's very similar to what we briefly talked before the show, that there's 3, 4, maybe 5 teams in there that's going to fancy it, and you don't know. It's going to boil down to where they are since they've come back. There's no everywhere. I think every team in the county is probably 15 more boys training than they did prior to this happening. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So what are they doing now when they come back? How to get everybody together again? In terms of what training people's doing. People can come back and do all the slogging and we're getting all this advice by the top level people that don't be slogging them. Do 50% and boost it up, and then many's doing that, many's not doing that, and I think it'll tail down to who's actually taking the right protocol to the strongest squad together. That sticks through the week in, week out games, and whoever can keep them 20, 21 boys available. I think will be hard to stop, and in that you've got the Kingdom, probably would be well up there. You've got if Shamrocks will fancy themselves again after what they've done last year. You've Ballymartin, and obviously not to put too much pressure on yourselves, John, as well. It's all, you know what I mean. And Drumgath, who pushed Annaclone the full way last year, are young and coming up through, and then. My tip for it really and truly is St John's. I do believe if they have the personnel for it, Marty and Francie's in with them, 2 shrewd characters, very, very smart in what they're doing, as well as a lot in there, so you've Paddy Hardy in with Leitrim as well, so there's a lot of shrewd men involved in that intermediate championship, and anything could happen, and then it's going to be really, really tight this year. very, very tight, you know. So can I tip anybody? Can I say anything? It's too close to call, but I would definitely, in my view, from the off, I would say St John's felt they left a lot behind in Newcastle v Glen last year. I know that, you know, so they'd probably look to go another step.
Shane, what does it take to win an intermediate? You know, I suppose a bit of luck as well is, all joking aside, you do need your own luck. But how do you manage this now that it's coming, you know, week on week?
That's a great point. That's a great point made about the depth of a squad, because, you know, the games will come thick and fast, and a hamstring strain takes you out for maybe 2 games and you may be gone at that point. So it is worth looking at the depth of panels, and in some cases it's just the biggest body, you know, the biggest group of players that helps you in that scenario. I think we're spot on in terms of the preparation now is key. You know, there's almost there's a pre-season feel about it, where some lads will have said to themselves, geez, I miss football. I'll head back up to the park and I'll see if I'll go for a runabout. I'll see how I get on. And some of your mates are playing, saying, why don't you come along and train? As a manager, you're trying to put together a game plan. You're trying to get your A team playing together. Now, in some cases, I know Stevie has said he's had the novelty in Bransford of having a full game in house, you know, where you've got 30, 35 and more players to pick from. We had that luxury in Rostrevor. We were able to play a full game in house. You go to another club like Ballyholland or some of the other, didn't have the numbers, and so you were limited in terms of what you could do on a particular game, on a particular training day. So game plan's going to be key, getting to that point quickly. You add in a bit of form, where you might have some players you're thinking, well, it's between me and Ciaran Brannigan for top of the left, and it's who's got form, and you put someone in. So that comes into play as well. I just think, you know, I think getting your own team right, irrespective of what the other team's doing in these 3 league games in advance of your championship match, and getting your first win under your belt is just absolutely massive, because it relieves a wee bit of pressure. You're up and running. You feel good about yourselves. You've probably got a bit of stuff to work on, and you move on. If you lose that first game, pressure, you know, straight away, pressure, season's over. What's there to play for? You know, other than just getting out of the house and being able to go over to the park. So, look, getting the game plan right, John, for me is the biggest thing on any given day, and then getting your matchups right, going against the team you're playing against. If you do get up and running and you're into that swing of things. So for most of these managers, for me, the uncertainty, form, game plan, and getting it sort of any semblance of shape to that game plan in the first games. I would predict that the first series of games mightn't be that great in terms of quality, because it's just such a gap, and it's going to be so hard to get up to the pace. We mightn't see some of the better football being played until later into the championship, because teams need a few weeks and a few games. I know offline we were talking about friendlies. You know, where are we with friendlies? Not allowed to play friendlies. Maybe there's a green light today to say, go start playing friendlies. Where do you squeeze them in? How many can you get done? I would say 1 or 2 friendlies is worth 5 or 6 training sessions to some teams. And so, you know, if I was in charge, I'd be hunting down friendlies as quickly as I could. There'd be some lads who just wouldn't be getting game time. You just have to apologise and say, you know, we've got to focus quickly here. But I'd be getting friendlies played and taking your chance on maybe an injury or 2, because there's nothing that beats a competitive game where you can split it into 3/3 and you can try a couple or 3 different things and start to put into practice what you're thinking you might do. Because that's the key for me. You can do all the training you want, but the games are going to be crucial to get some semblance of a game plan up and running.
No, Cormac, how from a sports psychology, this probably a nightmare season. Your phone's probably off the hook. People saying, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do, you know, you're going to have 2 groups, as Shane says, boys that are just there to get out of the house, to get back playing football. And then you've got, you know, you're trying to commit boys who want to win a championship to be driven. You know, how do they marry the 2 of them?
I don't know. Well, it is a tough one, John, but I think with the big numbers, having the ability to play 15 on 15 games is massive. And I think even talking with Dundrummer in that position now, which is great. So, like, to an extent, you can be trying things out on the full pitch, where you've got all the lines of the pitch occupied. You can work on shape, you can work on defensive setups, you can replicate a game plan to an extent. So that for me is going to be a big bonus that teams are going to be finding at this time of the season. I suppose, like Shane's saying, they're getting challenge games. It's fitting them in, as he mentioned, and I suppose using the league games, John. Like, ultimately, championship football is about getting to your best when you most need it, and the league is going to be your stepping stones to achieving that. Particularly where there's no promotion, no relegation.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the prime opportunity. Teams aren't really going to be caring necessarily so much about winning and losing, but it's about getting themselves in peak form, peak condition for championship. And I acknowledge that I bypassed your question there, John, because I don't know.
But how would you...
John, that's a massive point on no relegation, because it gives management teams and players a chance to go out and not be so concerned about a result in a league fixture, but be thinking about, this is what we're going to try and do. You might go long diagonal ball, you might be thinking of parking the bus, whatever. You're just trying to hone that for that first game or two. And you're not so worried about the cut and thrust. I know when the Ballyholland lens on, year after year for the last 10 years, the first rule of thumb was stay up, stay up, stay up, stay up, stay up. And we thought, I remember doing this, taking the team 10 years ago, and we sort of thought, if you stay up for 10 years, you earn the right to be a Division 1 club. We're still scrambling every year, 10 years down the track, just to stay up. We thought at this point you'd be more established and players would be more used to playing in Division 1 and so on. It's a massive relief, I think, for clubs to know that there's no relegation, which makes the championship so interesting, because this is the sense of, if you want to try and achieve anything, or you want to have any yardstick of success this year, it might be a quarterfinal, a semi-final, or a final, or a win for a lot of these clubs. So it's massive to have no pressure in the league and just go out and focus on your championship.
The pressure of the league then, Ciaran, there's Saville against Leitrim, Division 3 now. But the one that the names to be mentioned in winning, like Leitrim have how many under-20s now for the past couple of years. Saville, of course, have talented forwards, and I think that the Ran destroyed Leitrim last year. So how are you going to call that one?
Well, see, Leitrim really did have a bad run of injuries. The McCrickards, they lost all the boys, the Fleur players that lost, the under-20s, the dual players that really had a tough time of it there, for a long time. Listen, every club has their problems, you know what I mean? But they did have it, and it reflected on the results, you know what I mean? Because they were, in a championship semi-final the year before, and then they got relegated then, and like I remember, it was actually in the championship, they beat us in Kilcoo this year, and their manager was speaking to me after, and he was, just how they couldn't drive that every game. Like he says that was some of their players that it just delivered their best performance on that. It was actually a second half performance. It definitely wasn't a first half performance. They come out and sort of put us to the sword in the second half, you know what I mean, and run out for 3 or 4 point winners. But he just couldn't get that, because he couldn't get the full squad just out every week, and then that just has a knock-on effect. That still goes down to what's going to happen here. Who can get up and get the swagger about them early and go, over a long period of time. They were always waiting and saying, well, with 9-10 games to go, but they couldn't get their swagger about them because it was, came too quick. The players weren't back, that weren't available, and that can happen. Same with Saville, there must have been. I don't know. I don't really know the ins and outs of how Saville have ended up where they were. They just went to start. Like I remember a few years ago, Branchard, and maybe 6-7 years ago, Branchard playing Saville in Championship. We scraped by in Burn, and then and you're looking at it now, they're now down at Division 3, and by all accounts, they wouldn't be. They're there another year now because of the way things are going. So what is that? How does that affect everybody? What it's going to bounce back. It's it's helped some clubs, as Shane says there. At Ballyholland, first thing, stay up. There's a lot of other clubs in Division 1. You know what I mean? Branchard were in a relegation survival playoff with Dunpatrick last year. So was our view when we went in there to say, right, we're going to win Division 1? No, it wasn't. We were saying the same sort of thing. Right, we need to hit the ground running. We need to stay on top of things. Get the points on the board. Now that pressure's off. So it's helped the likes of these teams here. Them clubs.
Don't listen to that. Put your around me in advance And he says, do you think Brantford are going to win a championship? And he said, not a chance. And he said, no, I'm going in there to win a championship. Staying up, getting points on the board. These boys are going to win it, trying to win a championship.
Intermediate, he might have been talking about. But Ciaran, the unranked or the highest seeded, if you want to call them, team, I think they finished, sixth last year, and by all accounts, massive numbers as well coming through. Bernie Rowan is new in. He'll have Declan they'll be fit. That's one thing for sure. But how would that have affected the lockdown? Affected his preparations then with coming in with the new team as well?
Well, we're in the same boat. We done the same thing. There's a lot of managers. Just looking down through that. Well, I know John Hockey, for example, took over on Clone. He's going to know the players inside out. But Leitrim's changed their manager. Addy Call will have changed their manager. St John's, said the same. Ballymorton have changed their manager. You're in now with Stall. There's a bit of a change up in the management there too. You know what I mean? Drumgath, Jackie has brought another person in with him. So there's a lot of people getting to know their squads, and then next month to stop. You know what I mean? So everybody's, again, in my view, everybody's in the same playing field. It's what you may do with it. There's a lot of teams try to feed the teams with contact. Every time sending stuff into WhatsApp groups, do this, do that. And there was other teams that drip fed it, and then they had the Zoom calls. Did you use the Zoom call in part of, putting your game plans across, or did you just use the Zoom calls to keep everyone together? There's no right or wrong in it. You know what I mean? Because, you could be putting a game plan across and people just be nodding at a screen, but you're not sure if they're looking at the TV screen or looking at your screen, so you have to be sure of that, you know what I mean? While, if everybody comes back, once you get them back, how do you put that across to them but I happen to be speaking to a player from the Kingdom who I haven't seen in years, actually. I played with him at the county under 21s, and I was talking to him in Newcastle last week, and an interesting point that he said, because I said to him, you're going to be well up for it, you're going to, and he says to me, well, we've struggled with the favourite tag for so many years. Mm-hmm. So if he watches this, he's going to say, it's in their psyche, it's in their psyche that this is happening, because there was no onus. He didn't need to say anything different to me, So he openly said to me, well, we struggle with favourite. So that must be already in their squad, So he has to maybe change that persona to say, listen, we're favourites for a reason, because we're better than everybody else. We're stronger, we're physical. So then get the shoulders back, chest out, and go forward with it, rather than saying we're favourites, but what way do we deal with it? So if they could change that, it could be hard to stop. You know what I mean?
Cormac, how tough is it for to deal with that favourite tag, as Ciaran was saying there?
It's a good point Ciaran made. How you interpret things is a powerful thing, and that idea of using it, that we're favourites for a reason to give us confidence. It could be one angle. The other sort of angle is there's a nice sense, you'd hear it branded about a lot in sport, control and the controllables, and the favourite tag's outside of your control, so nothing you can be doing about that. It's just trying to get the boys to zone into the things that they have control of, which is their game plan, how to deal with their what ifs, if they can see the goal, how do they react to that, playing with intensity. So there are the sort of messages that your management need to be really drilling home towards. If you're a favourite or not a favourite, it's kind of irrelevant, and it's what you make of it yourself. If it's only a big deal if you make a big deal of it.
And Shane, how do you deal with it?
I know we used it in Rostrava to say, if you play, there's nobody going to beat you. There's nobody in this competition going to beat you if you go out and play to the best of your ability. And I just continue to say that to them. If we get ourselves right, it doesn't matter what's going on next door. Allow me to worry about matchups. Allow me to worry about what the changes that they're making during the game. But when we set ourselves up, and we're not going to change our game plan for who we're playing against. This is how we play. So they can come and watch us. But, we're just technically better than everybody else in this competition. And you just keep driving that home. I think it does give people an inch or two. It's maybe Rostrava in a situation. It was the first ever year in intermediate. Rostrava didn't really even want to be anywhere near it. So it was almost we had a little thing to shake, which was we don't want to be here. But it was like, Jesus, I know you don't want to be here, but let's not go out. Let's not add that ignominy to the fact that we're here in the first place. So let's, as Ciaran says, chest out, go out and just show how good you are and blow all of these teams off the pitch. Mm-hmm. That didn't happen in every game, but that was the message that we were sending out to them. To use that tag and that concern. You take what Klopp's done with Liverpool, right? And he's going in there and he said, forget about our history. You know, the history's there. We're not going to hang ourselves with that. We're going to make our own history. What a brilliant statement to make, to go out and try and rewrite things. And that seems to be his message, Cormac, over and over again, is we're going to make our own history. So, you know, if you take that Kingdom scenario, the boys that are playing didn't play in the last 10 or 15 years. So what does it matter to them what happened previously? Unless this core group of players has been burnt continuously, then you've got a stigma that is very hard to shake. But if this is a new nucleus, what the hell does it matter what happened 5, 10, 15 years ago in your history? It's old boys along the line chirping in your ear saying, "Oh, we don't do well on a wet night." I hear that about Ballyholland for years. We don't do well on a wet ball. It's like, what are we talking about? Like, do you know? Old wives' tales, you know.
There's the flip side of that. Not naming the names, but a friend of mine in a WhatsApp group was involved in a senior team, and they won a number of senior championships. You can probably work out who it is, but one of the championship finals was on a wet day, and 3 or 4 of the players must have decided among themselves in the warm-up, we play great in the rain, we're on fire in the rain, that ball sticks to us in the rain, they can't handle the rain. So that was the young players were hearing over and over and over again. I get a bit philosophical here, but I put a tweet up at the start of lockdown just around the message the parents are giving their children. What you hear starts to shape your reality. So if you're hearing that over and over and over and over again, well, you start to suddenly think, well, we actually do play well in the rain here. So I think a coach's message, as Shane pointed out there, is really powerful.
Oh, definitely. And I'm going to push this now, man, for prediction. Can I start with you? Sort of dark horses and winners, and
I still think St John's have a lot to go with. I really do. Yeah. You know, I still would fancy them. You know, Kevin and Paul in with Ballymartin. You know, if they've everybody out, you know, if they have everybody out and back, you know, is everybody back home, back playing again? You know, again, them boys won senior championship a few years ago. You know, so they'll be thereabouts. You know what I mean? So, dark horse. Who would have pulled through as a dark horse there? You know, out of the other one. Listen, I would say I'll go with Anaclone. I'll fire Anaclone in there and say, you know, John Haggy will be driven in terms of, you know, he's in there, he's a successful man, you know, in his own in business. So he'll want to be, when he's gone in as a manager now, he'll want to be successful. He'll be covering everything he can do to get them boys driven. There's everybody back. The 37 at training in the last week, you know. So if they've everybody back and going, there's players back there for a reason. Maybe one last thing, thinking as you know, as you said to Cormac earlier, they not maybe think, you know, short season, go back. A lot of them did said, right, I'm gonna have a whip at this, you know. So, and some of them are great footballers, and with not playing 15, 20 games and only having to play 5, you know, that experience could help. And there's some fine young footballers coming through there, so. That's why I would say if they can get up and running again, they're a confidence team. As you know, last year when we got up and running in the league, you know, that's the confidence brought us through in the tough times, you know.
Shane, just with the intermediate seems to be and juniors, they're so hard to call. It's a testament to down football really at these levels as well, like how tight it is. Can you possibly get a dark horse there?
I'm gonna plump for our neighbours, Newry Shamrocks. I think I'm so impressed with what Marty Rafferty and Gavin Murphy did last year, even to the point when the Shamrocks got knocked out their senior football had ended. They entered the under-21 competition, and I was taking our under-21s. We went down to play them in Newry on a given night, and I thought, again, went out with a message: we're going to have too much, because we had the nucleus of a minor championship team from the year before that was sort of and a couple added into that, and they were so good, and they were so connected, they were so driven, they had a game plan. You could see that they were passionate about it. It really meant something. Gavin and Marty kind of had instilled that in them, and I think if there's a sleeping giant in Down, like Newry Shamrocks are a sleeping giant, given the catchment area, the facilities, and what they could do, right? We've enjoyed the previous few years as a neighbour, knowing that they're playing at a lower level, but you're always thinking that they might be on the cusp of something again, and doing a ton of great work at underage level. You can see older senior players that had played, people like Paul Burns who go back and taking underage teams, and I can see them year on year getting better. John McAteer doing a job, people are getting better. So I think it's a club on the up. Added to their hurling and what they've done in hurling, and the whole club has a feel-good factor about it. So it's probably adding a bit of pressure. But I think Newry Shamrocks probably have a great opportunity to make a tilt at this. And as for a dark horse, I have to add a bit of pressure to you, Chief. I think Saul have an outside opportunity there to rattle a few feathers. So no pressure on yourself. I'm sure Eddie Honey didn't ring you and say, come on in, John, with it, and just give it a go and see what happens.
No, well, as Ciaran says, if Ballymorton, like, they're playing Division 1 football, and the boys, I'm sure, are back home. So, and Cavan and Paul Duffin are studio operators. So, like,
so you're playing it down right. That's the tactic.
I'd say it's the hardest draw. Tell you, put it that way.
You've some good talent in your changing room as well, by the way.
John, did you just ask yourself a question there without actually doing it?
No. Cormac, moving along.
The only reason I bummed up Ballymorton is because you texted me earlier to make sure
Cormac, how with all the managerial changes in the intermediate, how will that affect teams going into this championship? Is it a hindrance, or could it be like, well, everyone's on the same playing field? So
I personally think if managers that know their players, if they've played a season of the last season, I think you're at an advantage, John. No, I think that's an understated. For me, that's a massive advantage for managers who have that year till, even some of them been in their 2-3 seasons. They know their players. They know how to set up. There's less experimentation from those managers who have been at the helm for a while, and you're nearly getting in there with more concrete game plans, knowing what's what, even knowing the opposition as well. So some of those managers will be getting in knowing more about the opposition, and the opposition managers will be knowing about their own team. That's huge.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
It's a really good point, because even if you take Ciaran and Stevie's situation, Ciaran will know a lot of those players inside out, and he and Stevie have a great relationship, so they'll bounce off each other. But until Stevie sees, you have a corner back marking a tasty corner forward, and you give him 10 minutes, and you're thinking, I'm going to hook him because he's up against it. But you want to give him another 10 just to see, can he handle it? Can he fix it? Or will I switch him? What will I do? You're in that scenario, Cormac, where you're going, well, give him another 10. Kieran's in his ear going, you got to switch him, Chief, you got to switch him. But he might say, I want to see what he's got. He hasn't got that luxury this year. He hasn't got a chance to experiment like that, So I think it's massive. I think you're right.
No, so
also know having the battle too. Who's really going to be in the battle for you? You know your players that when this is going to get, that he's going to be there. Like, we know there's a lot of players in Brentford there that I've been away for the last 3 years. They've only come through, and there is ones there, and we're watching. We're doing the training. Listen, very good at training. Then we play the in-house games, and you're going, very good when things are going very well. Look, we've maybe made a wee change there, matched up, and maybe just tailored down a bit. So it's all learning. Like, and I can speak from experience. It is a learning, and you're going to be learning from that. So as a new management team, everyone's going to find that part. Like, everybody's going to be the person that's going to be there the last 1 or 2 years that knows when the going gets tough here. He definitely has it. That will be. It's an added point or two to you every game. Like,
playing yourself again there, Ciaran. Are you playing your chances down there again?
See what's going on here, Cormac. They're both playing their chances down. Yeah, they've got a very low expectation level.
I think I start pumping for carried off ladies here while we're.
I wonder how this interview will play at the debrief at the end of the season. We have a very low expectation.
I suppose that whenever we're saying about managers coming in, there was a man who came into the county last year, Mickey Moran, into the senior championship. Conor Gilligan, as I said, was at every single game. I interviewed him, and I was interested to know, because I think I'd ever seen a single game last year. But he was sitting writing notes upon notes upon notes on opposition. Like, and I mean, the game was like 2 points to 3 points at half time, and he must have had about 3 pages done. So, it is about your homework and that as well, going in and being prepared to do your due diligence, isn't it? Like,
something, John? There's very few people I would trust to go and watch a game for me either. You would have to really trust someone implicitly to know how they think about football, how you think about football, and they're the right match for you. That if you've got a good scout, so to speak, and he's feeding back good information, and you see it come to fruition, that's priceless. But like Conlon, fair play to him, given the mileage that he clocked up last year. Nothing beats your own eyeballs, because you'll see things, you'll just notice something about a player, or a little turn, or a little trademark flick, or something that somebody's got, or even, as Ciaran says, just that wee bit of steel that you see in someone. It's priceless to see that for yourself. And as Cormac says, if you're a new management team coming in, you don't know what you've got, and maybe actually some management teams coming in and they don't know what's in the other changing room either. That's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
But is it going to be Kilcoo's year again, Shane, in the seniors, like with their, now that they've got their crown back, you know, getting to an All-Ireland final, like how does teams now prepare to knock Kilcoo off the perch again?
I think all of us, right? If all of us were saying it's your last £10 note, and yet you wanted to get some return on it, we would all, whatever the price may be, it could be 1 to 2, whatever we're going in to put it on Kilcoo, because they're tried and tested. They've got that resiliency every year, and you know, they're underage players coming through. They're winners. They just think win. And now that they've had a taste of that straight out of the first year out of the gate, and they'll be, you know, their peer group. If you think of a minor championship team, 4 of them playing seniors, and then another 10 come behind saying, well, I think I'm as good as him. I'm going to be next. And that's driving the whole thing on. I mean, it sounds like it's in great hands, and they're set up to have another real tilt. And certainly in down, you couldn't look past them. But for me, I'm going to opt for Warren Point. I think the talent in that changing room, I think Niall McAleen and Ollie Sloan have done a brilliant job in there. I think they were so close last year. I mean, so close. It just didn't capitalise on opportunities in that first half. If they had been a wee bit more direct and went a wee bit more down the throat in a couple of opportunities, remember Rhino getting in behind a couple of times into the D, and they just didn't have that killer blow, which kept, and Kilcoo do it brilliantly, better than anybody. They kept in the game, they kept tipping away.
Was that from, do you think that was an experience, Shane? You know, just being there for the first year?
I do, probably an inexperience and maybe a lack of belief. Do you know, like a real sense of belief that we can go and win this game. And the momentum surge and the confidence that's generated with a goal at the right time, like you boys know the drill. Momentum, you know, something that goes for you against you could change the next 20, 30 minutes of a game. And will Kilcoo get on top? That's very difficult to turn that around. But they were right there, do you know? So I just think they've left a wee bit behind. They must have an appetite to go back for more. That hasn't been sort of quenched, if you like. And they have all that talent in that changing room. And they really do have talent, like there's no doubt. And Niall seems to have a great relationship with them. And has gotten some great performances out of them. So just to be different, because it's easy to say Burn and Kilcoo, right? And if that was our final, you wouldn't think anything of it. But I think the point are going to be there or thereabouts. And Cormac referred to Paul's earlier. The point don't win one in the next 3 years with the talent that they have. They'll look back on themselves and they'll kick themselves forevermore.
You know, they definitely left some behind that. And as I think I called the final war of attrition. And you know, there's only ever going to be one winner whenever Kilcoo are involved in that battle. But Ciaran, you were involved in stopping, you know, a real dynasty of a team in Mayobridge in 2003. You know, how did you prepare for that? And you know, how did that come about?
John, thankfully I was only water boy in 2002. Senior debut, you know, 4, but it was listen, there was a big write up in the local papers. This just was going back over history there. I think this week it was all popping about their social media anyway, and you know, there was a huge thing that day. You know, it was home game. It was in St. Paddy's Park. You know, it was a big dilemma. Eamon Burns was in coach of the team, God rest him, and Benny Corrigan was manager. And they built it up that day. I was actually kit man with them at the time.
Mm-hmm.
We met at the primary school, came across. There was a whole just different element to it, you know, while Mayobridge were just coming down the road and, you know, going for another one, and, you know, then the heavens opened up, but it sort of went with us. But there was times in that day where if the ball just had went left, maybe a wee tip right, you know, they could have run away with the game early, but then it started swinging around, you know, and Branchford made a change, you know, Steve McKibben came in, done well at the time, set up the goal, you know. That was a game where Mayobridge had nothing known about that man, and that's what I probably didn't say earlier, but probably would have said, you know, out of these 10, 15 boys that Shane talked about that are coming out of the woodwork, how many of these are going to be list one or two little gems for teams like intermediate, junior, or senior? You know, how many of them's going to say, well, I'll give you the next 3 months, I'll stay about here. You know, maybe no interest in playing a full season of the guy. They're not really ready to commit, but you know, they've been locked up for 3 or 4 months. Maybe stop playing football when they're 17, 16, 18, whatever. They've stopped that. You know, there could be a wee gem out there that, you know, doesn't matter if you're a new manager, no manager, you mightn't be sure of him. You know what I mean? And that if that comes on, it could change it. You know, and you know, Kilcoo.
Ciaran, to add to that, if you take that team, that Brantford team that won that championship, you still had a serious amount of talent in that team. Like, I think of that team, there's 8 or 10 of those boys played for Down. Do you know, like, that there was talent there as well. Yes, there was a belief, momentum went the right way, the break of the ball broke for you, but still, you had the team to deliver on it. And when I look at what's in our championship, I said this before you came on to the boys, I said, it's almost as if the draw was handpicked to give every single team in the opening draw has something to play for. Like, you go down the list, every single team will fancy beating the other team. And that includes, like, the lowest ranked team would be Darragh Cross, right? They've drawn Ballyholland. I'm sure they're ecstatic about that draw, do you know? And equally, Ballyholland are very happy with the Darragh Cross draw, like right across every single line. And they've got a couple of absolute doozers in Kilcoo and the Bridge and the Point and Burn. So, like, every game has something going for it. But there's only a certain number of teams here that can win this, because the other teams just don't have enough talent across the board to win senior championship in my book. So Bransford broke that dynasty because they had the talent. I think the Point have it, Burn clearly have it, and Kilcoo. Do you see anybody else emerging that's going to challenge those three?
There's talk now of the number of people that I've been speaking about dark horses, and they say Carry Duff, because one, they've had the squad now. There's no boys away travelling, anything like that. They've had them. You know, the county. There's no county training, and you know, this could be Carry Duff could maybe put it up the team even in the quarterfinals. Whenever, you know, one-off game. You know, that's whenever they could catch somebody on the hop. Cormac, what's the feeling like up in Belfast with Breda and Carry Duff?
Sort of quiet, John, to be fair, but Carry Duff were definitely, it's a fair point. I think they've won 3 out of the last 21 championships. Would have been right in saying that. I watched them a couple of times last year, and they've got youth and they've got pace. They've got. I think I actually watched them a couple of years ago, Shane, when they surprised Ballyholland. So that was the first breakthrough that they could see that they could win it.
Ask Ciaran about that.
There's a scout.
I wasn't involved in that one. I wasn't involved in that one.
No, I'll tell you a story about that one. I wasn't involved in that one either. But Stevie asked me. He says, "Have you used any game this week?" And I don't know the game at the time. And I said, "Look, get down and watch Carry Duff and Loughlin Island or something." So I went down, come back with this big 2-page thing for a whole dilemma on it, like told them all about what to do, their restarts, where they pick up positions, their pace, their power, and I was dead on. But Ballyholland went out the first half and left 8 or 9 points behind them, like, you know what I mean? But I told them about this youth and energy was coming through. Carry Duff started bringing it off the bench, and you know, don't get me wrong, but Stevie started bringing Soupy, Paul Murphy, and these boys in, and I goes, but after the game he says, "Oh my God," I says, "Told you."
He did, to be fair. He held his hand up. But Cormac, you mentioned age in this group. I think it was last year. I don't think they had a senior player over 26. I think this is a really young group, and the younger group, they're like, if you take, you know, they're just at that profile where they're bursting at this. They're not 18 or 19. They're not lads. They're men now. Do you know? They're just coming through, and there's enough of them. I had maybe 6 or 7 of them through Queen's the year before last, in both the first squad and the second squad, and like, you know, there's serious talent in Carry Duff. My wonder is, will they have enough belief to think that they can win the whole show? And I don't know if they think just yet. I think this season in Division 1 would have been massive for them to get a league campaign under their belt, to take a few scalps, and they would have taken lots of scalps, by the way, at home in particular. But I think this championship is maybe just too soon for Carry Duff, John, to be honest. I think Mayo Bridge are the dark horses.
Yeah, someone actually said that to me, that, you know, Ciaran McKee will have them fired up. Maybe they wouldn't have wanted Kilcoo in, you know, with the back door. As I say, maybe they would have wanted, you know, a bigger scalp in the quarterfinal.
But it might be the time to get Kilcoo. Do you know, it might be the game to get them right off the bat, and they'll rise for that. And again, Mayo Bridge have a really significant underage setup and a lot of decent young lads coming through. And you're going to see, John, we talked about this last year in the podcast, as I think all of you did, the changing of the guard and all the young boys that have come through from the older regime that seemed to just retire all in one go. Like, they've all had a year under their belt and they're coming through maybe a bit more confident, probably 6 or 9 months of S&C under their belt, and anything that they've done in the last period, you'll see young lads that have bulked up if they've been advised correctly in the period that they've been out. So listen, you know, McKeever and the people around him, they'll be set up well, you know. So I fancy them as the dark horses, but I don't see anybody outside that top 3, to be honest.
No, Cormac, you know, again, you know, down football really is so competitive now. I actually think that Kilcoo had some of their toughest games in the Down Championship last year.
Yeah, one point pushed them the pin of their collar. Those with what Kilcoo have in their favour, John, is like, you can't replicate pressure. There's no better chance to replicate pressure than been in pressure situations. And them, like, they've built up an absolute mass over the last 8-9 years of Ulster football. Tough competitive games, and that just grows a team. You might lose 1 or 2, but by God, you learn from it. And even there, the last year, right the way through that Ulster campaign into the All Ireland semi-final, you know, they've got that in the bank, and I think that's something that stands by them. But back to your point there, yeah, I think the standard in Down football is it's definitely improving. I think Burn took them to a replay. Probably should have had them beat on the night. So yeah, I think they were probably the closest games Kilcoo got, right the way through to the All Ireland final.
Trevor had a good rattle at them as well, John. And I was at that game, and certainly on the first half, where Trevor gave them all they wanted that day, full of running, full of energy. Just again, didn't capitalise on the scoreboard.
I think the forwards. I think the forwards was the problem with Trevor that day, Shane. I think they ran out of forwards. Yeah.
But just on what they've got going for them, and Cormac rightly talks about pressure and dealing with pressure and thinking under pressure. Their game management is better than anybody's. Just knowing what to do in a certain scenario, going 2-3 points down doesn't faze them. Dig in, sit tight, don't concede another big score, nip another one. You know, you never see them conceding 1-3 or 1-4. And I know it happened in extra time in the All Ireland final, but their probably legs had gone at that point. But you don't see them shipping big scores. They sit in, and they've got that game management down to an absolute T. And when the scenarios arise, to buy a free kick, to nail a free kick, they've got all the tools to do that. So, look, I can't believe we've gotten this far on this segment and we haven't spoken about Burn, who the year before, you know, and probably over the last 3 years, lost one, won one, and then went out with a whimper. And they're going to be looking at it going, I know, talking to 1 or 2 lads that work for First Derivatives, and I'm kind of thinking, they're looking at it going, I can't believe they got as far as they got in an All Ireland series, because they really fancy themselves as well in a match up with Kilcoo. So, you know, I know we've mentioned them, but we haven't really.
Yeah, like they actually went to a draw with Kilcoo last year. Like people forget that. Like, you know, I think
they had the game won, didn't they? They were 2-3 points up, and the game was over. And conceded a ball. I think Coxey came out of the defence and lost the ball, and bang, score. And it was as small a margin as that, you know.
Cahill Foy as well. Cahill Foy as well got injured or black-hearted in the second game. And Cahill is so like integral to their game plan as well, that, you know, but they definitely have the squad like the challenge Kilcoo.
Absolutely, no doubt. Across the board, as I say, you look at each fixture, and every single team has something to play for. Glen will be looking for a scout with Bransford. Dara Cross will fancy Ballyholland. Castlewell and Breda, Longstow, Loughlin Island, Rostrevor, Downpatrick. They're all pretty evenly matched. And then you've got let's put the 4 big teams, and I'm putting Mayorbridge in there at the expense of 2 or 3 others where they could rightly say they're in that 4th spot. But each game it's a cracking start, to be honest. I'm just not sure, as I said earlier, how good the football will be because it's early. But the games are beautifully balanced.
You haven't mentioned Clonduff yet, man, at all. Like, you know, and Clonduff for me is a team that has a lot of potential and a lot of, you know, they just need something to click. I think maybe it's, you know, goalkeeper, full back line or something, just not totally. They're just missing some component there to really push them up into that top 4, top 2. Shane.
No doubt. Actually, as soon as you mentioned it, I'm thinking, I'm looking at the page and I'm going, how did I not mention them either? I know from talking to Aidan Carr, they were delighted with the management team last year, that they felt that they clicked well. I don't know if there's just something in Clonduff. If those first 3 training sessions don't go well, you're under pressure, as a management team, because that I don't know. I don't think. Look, I'm only looking from the outside in, but I think you need to manage Clonduff differently than you would manage a Kilcoo. You might need to give Clonduff a little bit of leeway. And you might need to deal with them slightly differently to get the best out of them. And maybe that management team did so. I know that some fixtures. I think Ballyhole beat them in a league game, and some of the supporters weren't so delighted. You could hear verbals from the sideline. But those boys are serial winners in other championships in other counties. So another year under their belt, knowing their players, like we've talked about, a little bit better. And they have 4 or 5 cracking footballers. Like Darren O'Higgins, best footballer in town for me. So maybe up there with him and Dabbs. But you take those 2, they're standout. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Lots of potential in Clonduff. But here's the thing. Downpatrick, Ballyhole and Rostrevor, would any of them 3 fear playing Clonduff in a championship? I don't think so. They just don't have that aura about them in the way that a couple of those other teams do.
Ciaran, I'm not going to ask you too much about it, but I suppose you're delighted to be home coaching Bransford again. Stephen's come in there. How's you been finding it, and how did you manage lockdown?
Listen, we were buzzing to get it over the line and sort it out, but once you're back now, you're trying to do, you're not trying to do anything different than everybody else is. You're trying to get the game plan into place as quick as you possibly can, getting everybody to cement into it. You know what I mean? Over lockdown, we didn't really do too much with them, to be honest with you. No time scale, nobody knew what anybody was doing, so we just took a massive step back, and just Stevie and Shane topped up in their golf game there, and I just helped them.
Carry the bags.
Yeah, just carried the bag. That's all right. We bump and run shots from Shane there, you see. So, listen, now we're back. We're buzzing. We're back in big numbers. You know what I mean? But listen, it's good having big numbers. But trying to get that home and hose till 20, 22 players. You know what I mean? And trying to get that on song, because listen, you can say what you want, and you can say you're talking it down and that. But Glen will have absolutely no fear over Brentford whatsoever. Absolutely no fear. Coming off intermediate champions, it's a free crack of the whip for them this year. You know what I mean? So they're in, and we're under no illusions in that.
No, like Glen did. I was managing the Paddock at the time, and they beat us in the first game up in Mayor Bridge, and they also drew with Warren Point, and it went to extra time. Their next round, but they had the Millers then, as well, and are they coming home? Is there any word of them coming home, or are they still staying out there for the end of this year?
They're meant to be on their way back. McParn's back now. Brooks, and they're a lot of boys all back training. You know what I mean. So I'm sure they're like every club, that they'll have more personnel available than they won't. So listen, we are under no illusions how tough it's going to be. You know what I mean. And again, Shane pointed. We talked about it earlier. Where's the venues going to be? Is it going to be a real tight field? And I think that'll play a big factor in this championship too. Do they wait to the semi-final to bring it to Newry? Like Shane would agree with me. And if you had Ballyhole on a tight field, Shane, for example, for the first couple of games, you'd have no fear who they played. You know what I mean? Like Ballyhole in the league in the past number of years have had a great, probably the best record against Kilcoo. You know what I mean? And not, so if them venues are stripped out and we're all in tight venues, Brentford and Glen in a tight field, Glen have serious pace, they have experience, you've a lot of power going right up through the middle of the field. So that will have a bearing on it as well. Brentford maybe looking for a big open field like they normally do, so, that's not to say that we're not capable of playing on a tight field too, but it has that wee thing, as Cormac pointed earlier, when somebody keeps telling you something over and over again, you start believing it. And Ballyhole would be one, because I was part of there for years. Shane's there all his days. They know if they're in a tight field and they're in the nitty gritty, they're not afeard of nobody. Not afeard. And that, like, proven in Rough Night in in Bourne last year against Mayor Bridge when it went to the thing. You know, Mayor Bridge, big scalp. You know, they done it. So I think that'll have a big burn. I really do. You know what I mean? When the venues comes out, you know, probably not the first round because you're going to get your bye ball. But you know, if they say semi-finals before we go back to Newry, as that has been previously talked about, well then that could definitely cause a big upset.
We've all probably worked with Stevie at some point in some capacity, and it's a massive coup for Bransford to get Stevie. I mean, a massive coup. Stevie could have walked into any club team that was vying for any club championship in Ulster, I would imagine. And if you take our big two, if he was in charge of a Burn changing room or a Kilcoo changing room, he wouldn't look out of place. Like, Stevie is aspirations to go beyond that level, and Bransford will have a steel that maybe they've been susceptible to not having, right? They'll be well organised, and they'll have a bond. They'll have a camaraderie that he builds. He builds it maybe to the point that there's a siege mentality. It might be something, looking from the outside in, Ciaran, it might be something that I wouldn't have said Bransford have had, like that siege mentality, that sense of it's us against the world. And Stevie harvests that really well, right? And he's a brilliant trainer, and he thinks very astutely about his game plan, as does Ciaran. Like, it's a massive coup to get Stevie and Ciaran into their changing room, and it will galvanise that group. And I know, I believe the senior players went looking, those two boys, you know, because they obviously feel there's another kick in things in that changing room. My biggest concern, I'll say it openly to you, Ciaran, my biggest concern is that there's a bit of baggage with the group, that they've been, you know, touted as technically fantastic, but just they haven't rose to the occasion on too many championship nights in recent years. And maybe it's too late for some of them. You know, when push comes to shove and that heat of the moment, are they going to be able to come through? Well, like, no better two men to be in charge of them to try and change that message.
Cormac, how would you change that message if you were going in there as to get a team that's maybe just hasn't reached the heights that they thought they would have, before now?
The more you look back, the less you look forward. Like, it's, that's history. It's can't control that. You know, we'll have to look at what we can do. And it would be, for me, it's all about looking forward. Stamping, as a new management team, a new coaching team, stamping your own authority of what you're about, mixing that in with the team and how you're going to bring them forward. But a bit like the club thing there, you know, like, why are you going to let the weight of something that's outside of your control bring you down? It has to be all about moving forward for me.
No, and there is a couple of new managers in the first division as well. Frank Dawson obviously has the experience of being a coach with Mark Dorn last year. In the Castlewell now, they probably would have been pushing for promotion more so this year. The same as the Stone as well, with Benny into the Stone. Is this a free hit sort of, this championship for them, do you think, boys? He's frozen. Go ahead, Ciaran.
Well, listen, Benny in with the Stone, like, Benny's going to come off the terms of, you know, what he is as a player. You know, he's a born winner, and he's driven to do everything. Like, I was speaking to Benny a while back, you know, before COVID hit, and you know, he just talked about his prep to it, like, you know, everything he does, you know. So he's not going to be getting in there thinking anything losing, and like, he will be driven into the boys that they could cause. Like, if he can go as far as causing one big upset in this, well, you know, is Loughlin Island their upset, or is another one their upset? But he'll be driven to try and make that one upset where he knows, right, when it comes to the push, we'll do it, because he'll be there the following year, you know, to make that step from 2 to 1 again. You know, that'll be his end product, you know. So and Frank Dawson with the Town, there's a bit of a change there in terms of Finty McGreevy's in along with him. You know, Finty, you know, a lot of the players will look up to Finty, you know what I mean? He'll get the best out of them. You know, everybody knew how Finty played and how he operated in training, you know. So if he brings that steel mentality to them, you know, as well as Frank's expertise and what he does, and, you know, they'll be well set up, they'll be well organised. You know, Town, Breda, again, as Shane pointed out earlier, both teams will have something to play for. They'll fancy beating each other. Both teams will probably be happy enough with the draw, you know. But, you know, the Town, you know, again, swagger, I keep coming back to it, you know, and I do, like, listen, if we all had that as Shane says, as we all had that tenner, you definitely put it on Cuckoo. But if you had another spare tenner, like you would fire it on anybody, because I just feel that there is that team, you know. Now I would agree that, you know, the Kerry Duffs and the Derek Cross and stuff, you know, you may be a bit too early, but you know, there's a lot of maybe 4 or 5 other teams there that you could say, you know, if they get the swagger about them, like, you know, I always remember, you know, when we were at Ballyholland, we struggled, and we needed, I think it's 7 out of the last 9 games to stay in Division 1, and we done it, you know what I mean? And you're going, well, if somebody done that, somebody just put that run together, and like in them games, there was teams were still in the championship, we're still looking to fight for things, and I'll always hope that, I bring that down at Clone with me, and I'll bring that again to Branch with me, where that was, you know, the swagger and the shoulders back stuff, you know, and the chest out. That was understanding. Them boys were going into the games every Friday night knowing that they could really produce the goods to win the game. You know what I mean? It wasn't as if, you know, we really need to be outstanding to do it here. They were actually starting to believe, right, okay, we lost 6 or 7 in a row there, but now we've maybe 2 in a row, we've won, you know, then the swagger up and happens. And I do really believe if some team can maybe knock two out of 3 wins in the first 3 league games, or somebody goes in 3 out of 3, you know, if you go in 0 out of 3, and I'm going to put the pressure on, like, you know, could put the pressure on myself here by saying this, if we go in 0 out of 3 against Glen, you know, there is going to be a lot of serious questions asked, you know, in your own changing room or where you're at. You know, you need to be getting in there with a couple of wins, at least a win under your belt. And if somebody get in there with 3 out of 3, you only another 3 games to win, and you're sitting there in the bang on the championship, you know.
Shane, how important is it to go and win the games in this early rounds of the championship to get that week's break, do you think?
I think it'll be huge because it's a bit like the NFL when it gets to playoff season. The bye week, you know, gives you a chance to rest up for a week. It gives players a little bit of a chance to rest bones and muscle injuries and whatever, and you can get a chance to get out and look at games as well, which I think is important, because maybe some players just like bang, 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 not focus too much on what else is going on and just concentrate on your own game. But I know personally I'd have liked as a player to have got out to seeing a few games and seeing what else was going on with other teams and other game plans, because like I said earlier, even your management team giving you information is not the same as you actually seeing it for yourself. So yeah, look, getting a bye week at a stage where you're going to play, you know, a series of games in a short succession, I think it's crucial to give people a chance just to, you know, even just to have a night off or to have, you know, a barbecue or something on a given night, just to do something different, just to freshen it up, to think, you know, we're in a good place. So I think it could be, you know,
even though Shane, like boys maybe taking, you know, knocks like a dead leg or like strain, you know, something that maybe takes maybe a week to 10 days to recover. You suddenly have that, you know, you've got time to work with that. Whereas if you're out week after week after week, you really have to play them boys, and then is that even making the injury worse? Or, you know, so there's other nuances there as well.
No doubt. And that's what I said earlier about the bigger squads with a bit more depth can take some off. John, you'll have realised with Rostrava, I was adamant every single week we're putting 6 subs on, because you could put 6 subs on. Even when it was the Blackyard sub, I was going, let's get somebody on, because it keeps 21 players interested and maybe 24. And when you go to training the following week, you're not looking at 17. You've still bought in. People are getting a taste of it. So your squad, if you get a chance to use, the luxury to use, maybe it can happen in a lot of championship games, but just keeping them involved and giving it a sense of competition is vital for the later stages if you can go week to week.
No, and like with championship football, you know, can you see you went offline there, Castlewell, Longstone, you know, the likes of Glen Division 2, Dark Cross Division 2, Breda Division 2. Is this a free hit for them this year, you know, to get a run in the championship?
Absolutely, of course it is. I've heard that phrase from a couple of different people across different clubs saying it's a free one. Just what have we got to lose? Go out and have a go. And you could find yourself, I mean, Ballyholland made a semi-final of a championship on the back of the right draw, a couple of wins, and all of a sudden you're almost there. You're within touching distance, and that was a real sense of that in Ballyholland last year. Although it went horribly wrong against the point, that sense of we're here in our own terms. We've deserved to be here. But you know, back in my playing time, we got to a semi-final of a senior championship as well. Just luck of the draw. We got a couple of great draws. I think we got 2 Division 2 teams, and we were a Division 2 team at that time. So for those guys, you win that first game. You pick one of the winners in the next day, but then you could get another team that gets you through on the second day out, and then you've got another crack at one of the big 3 or 4 if you've lost in the winners group. So it's made for some of these teams. Let's call it the lower end of the rankings, to get a couple of wins under their belt, and then who knows? Because we've talked about Clonduff and Rostrevor and Carryduff or whatever. I haven't even mentioned Loughlin Island, who have a lot of there is the top teams, Burn and Warren Point and Kilcoo, but then down that list, then anyone could beat anybody. I really do think that. You touched on that earlier. The strength of our league. Take a 12 team league, and if you take the top 2 or 3 out on any given night, all those other teams would beat each other. Yeah. That's class. That's sort of Derry level of competition going on in your league, which is great. Which I think is good. Shane, I'm going to push you for predictions of the senior draw then. So 1 point Burn. Who you going for? Well, I'm going to go for Burn, but the point to win the championship. Because I know Burn really like beating the Point, so I think Burn will not want the Point to beat them, and the Point getting to the final last year really annoyed Burn. So it was like that blue wave rising, and they didn't like that. So I think Burn will win that, but I do think the Point will win the championship. Kilcoo Maybridge. I think Kilcoo will win that game. Ballyholland Darcross. Have to fancy Ballyholland, just to be honest. Glen Bransford to beat Glen. Carryduff Clonduff. I'm going to go draw. Oh. And then I'm going to go Carryduff in a replay. Finished on the night? Yeah. All right, so that doesn't work. We'll go to extra time then. Carryduff in extra time. Rostrevor against RGU. Well, you know my feelings on the Rostrevor boys, and something I said to them a couple of years ago. So, it's time to put up. So I'm gonna go Rostrevor over Downpatrick. Longstone against Loughlin Island. Big ask for Benny. We talked this earlier. Championship pedigree. You take Anaclone, their championship pedigree at intermediate level. Longstone's championship pedigree at senior level is unbelievable, right? Punching above their weight. And all of those times over the years, even Gregory's reign, beating maybe Burn in Newry on a given night. I think Longstone will beat Loughlin Island on a championship night, but I think on any other given night, Loughlin Island will have too much for them. And Castlewellan Breda then? And it's Castlewellan for me against Breda. Good stuff. And your dark horses then is who did you say, Maybridge, you think? I said the Bridge, then you threw another couple at me, but I'm going to stick with the Bridge. I just think McKeever's had a longer time now to work with them. And, from what I've heard about Ciaran, there's a good relationship with that squad of players, and he's had a chance now to embed the way he wants to play. He'll have been relying on a lot of the Maybridge selectors last year just to give him a steer on other teams and his own players, like Cormac had said. So I think now he's got a chance to albeit it's just a few weeks extra, but he'll have worked with them a wee bit longer, Cormac, how do you fancy for the championship and a possible dark horse as well?
If we're going with 1 point to win it, Kilcoo are my dark horses then.
Oh, you can't do that. And Ciaran, apart from Bransford, who would you say is favourites and who's your possible dark horse there?
Kilcoo definitely be favourites again. There'll be the steel about them. So I still think they're right up there. There's no point saying any different. Dark horses coming through. I still the Point. I can see what you're saying with the Point. I would like to, to have a load of talent to do that. Born. I actually think Clonduff, to be honest with you, if I'm going to call it a dark horse, I would say Clonduff. I just think I'd keep coming back to what I said earlier. If some team got the swagger, and I believe if they did get their swagger, they have a lot about them.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to sign off, because get their swagger back. We'll call this. Boys, it was an absolute pleasure, and look, this will be run out next week, and we'll have another wee go at predicting the games further on down the line as well. But I hope you get plenty of stick from people that the teams you've picked, the teams you've missed. So, you know,
They'll look at us and say we don't know what we're talking about anyway, so it'll not really matter. It's always interesting to listen back and say, geez, I got that totally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm not saying teams will even worry about what we've suggested, but it'll be interesting. Statistically, we'll get a bunch of that wrong, right? Because teams will just turn up and blow other teams away. But yeah, look, I think it's a cracking senior draw. And as Cormac and Ciaran are going through the other draws, you start to look at them a wee bit more closely, and you think, yeah, that is a good game, and that is a good game, you know. So, be interesting to see, Cormac, how these two boys fare up.
Aye.
They
played themselves down anyway, Shane.
I'm only the coach, boys. Ronan McCartan is the manager. He's the boss. I just do what the boss tells me. Ciaran,
what is it, Steve Staunton's famous line? The buck stops for Ronan then.
Definitely. Ciaran, all the best in the league and the championship as well. You know, it's good that you're back home and back coaching again with the boys.
Yeah, it's buzzing. Good to be back. But listen, lads, all joking aside, it's just great to be back to get some sort of normality. You know, that's what it is. Next Friday night, everybody back playing football again. That is the buzz of it.
Absolutely. Boys jumping the fence, rows in the stands and the pitches. Will I go? No, better not. Cut that out, John. Cut that out.
cut. Whenever you're saying about we've all had run-ins with Stevie, we've all worked with him, and I was thinking, oh, geez, where's this going?
Yeah.
But boys, thanks a million, and I'll definitely get this back on again, and we'll see who's been talking about the balls anyway.
Yeah,
all right, man. Thank you.